Hey guys, what's up? It's Jess here. And I was at my local CVS store a couple of weeks back, and I was, just walking around the Wet n Wild section because I heard that they did release some new stuff, so I wanted to go ahead and check it out. And then I saw this palette here, and it definitely caught my eye here, especially this shade up here, because it definitely reminded me of the Modern Renaissance palette, the Bon Fresco shade. So I was like, I'm gonna just go ahead and pick it up. So when I got home and I opened up my Renaissance palette, Modern Renaissance palette, I opened it up and I was like, whoa, like, definitely looks like a dupe. This looks like a dupe for that one. And I have my Renaissance palette right here. So it was Bon Fresco, this shade here, that I definitely thought that it looked like. So I'm going to go ahead and put it side by side so you can see those two shades. So this shade and this shade. And then I did see other colors that were looking very similar. So I swatched them all, the ones that I thought that looked the same, and I'm going to go ahead and swatch them for you guys to definitely see if they are dupes. But I do want to go ahead and basically do the same eyeshadow look on both eyes, but I want to go ahead and do a wear test to see if it is a dupe, not just the colors, because I know with my ABH colors, they do last for the whole entire day. So I wanted to see if the Wet n Wild colors also lasted the same amount of time to definitely call it as a dupe. So I'm going to go ahead and do my eyes, and I'm going to go ahead and do that on camera so you guys can definitely see both of the colors and all that to see if it looks the same or not. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with the Wet n Wild. I'm going to start off with the shades here and then go up here and then come back down. So you guys can definitely see I'm going to leave a gap in between so I can go ahead and swatch the ABH colors. Actually, let me go ahead and get them out first. So like that. You guys can definitely see what shades I'm referring to. So for this one here, this transition shade here, I'm thinking it's a little bit more on par with this one, which is Raw Sienna. So I'm going to go ahead and just give that a swatch. This is the rosé in the, is it in the air or in the park? I don't know. I'll tell you guys in a little bit. So this one here, I'm going to go ahead and swatch that. And that one is very, very soft. Not the greatest pigmentation. And for the ABH, oops, sorry. I'm thinking it is a little bit more on par with the Antique Bronze. It's definitely looking the same so far. And then this one here, I think it would go on par with the Bon Fresco. That one here. And then this shade here would definitely be a dupe for Primavera. Go a little bit down. I think for that one, I think this one is a little bit more bronze and this one has a little bit more of a little pink to it. I don't know if you guys can tell on camera, but I can definitely tell on here. Then I'm going to go in with this shade here. And I would say that one is more on par with Tempera. I feel like this one is a little bit more pinkish and this one has a little bit more beige. I don't know if you guys can tell. Hoping you guys can. Okay, now I'm going to go in with this other transition shade. And that one is a little bit on par with this one here, which is Warm Taupe. So shades. I'm going to go with this one. And that one would be the dupe for Real Gar. I think this one's a little bit softer than Real Gar. Okay, now I'm going to go in with this one here. That one, let me try to get it as best as I can over here. I think that one would be this one here, Red Ochre. Then I'm going in with this shade here. That one's a little bit on the rough side. Definitely a little bit chalky as well. That one would be a Love Letter. Love Letter is also a little bit on the chalky side as well. And then this is the last shade here, and I think that one would be a little bit more on par with Cypress Umber, which is this shade here. Ooh, Cypress Umber is very, very soft. Definitely a little bit softer than this one here. Yeah, those are the shades here that I thought that would be the dupes for the Wet n Wild palette. The Rose, I think it's Rose in the Air. Let's see. Rose in the Air, Rose in the Park. Rose in the Air. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by priming my eyes with this Chico White Chico concealer. And before we even give it a chance for the concealer to crease, we're going to go ahead and go in and set that in with the Innisfree No Sebum Mineral Powder. So for my transition shade, I think I'm going to go in with this color here. And this would be equivalent to the Warm Taupe. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with those two shades here. I'm going to be using a Real Techniques number 203 for my transition shade. This is going to be for the Anastasia palette, and for the Wet n Wild palette, I'm going to be using one of their own brushes, which is the Wet n Wild. I don't know because it doesn't say, but it's kind of the same thing as this Real Techniques. I do want to go ahead and just type out the excess. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but the Anastasia palette definitely does have a lot of fallout. So I'm going to go ahead and top that off. I'm going to go in a little bit higher because I do have hooded eyes. I'm going to go ahead and just put it the same way I put the Anastasia color. Okay, so those are those two shades on. They definitely do look very similar on the eyes. Very minimal blending on this side. I think I blended a little bit more on this side than I did with the Wet n Wild palette. Okay, so now I think I'm going to go in with the Real Gar here, this orangey shade. And I'm going to go over it with the same brushes that I used, these two brushes, because I still want to go ahead and go over that lid, but just a little bit underneath where I put the Warm Taupe shade. I'm going to go ahead and just put it a little bit lower than I did place that other shade. And I'm actually going to use a different blending brush because I still have a lot of product in that other brush. And I don't want to get any additional product on the eye. And the same thing with this one here. I feel there's still a lot of product left in there. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with another blending brush. I'm going to put just a tiny bit more product on here for the Wet n Wild side. I feel like it needs a tiny bit more, but there's enough on the brush to do that. Now, since I'm going to go ahead and be doing a halo eye, I want to go in with this color here. This is Love Letter, and this is basically the dupe for this one. So I'm going to be using this one in the inner and the outer corners of my eyes. So for the Wet n Wild side, I'm going to go in with yet another Wet n Wild brush here. This was from their limited edition collection and like the holiday one. And for the Anastasia one, I'm going to be using this Urban Decay double-sided brush. And it's basically like a pencil brush, I guess you could say. This one's a little bit more fluffier. This is the closest one that I can find for this one to this one. So I'm going to go ahead and just focus this in the outer and then also in the inner corner of my eye. I'm just going to go in about 1/3 of the way in on both sides. And I'm going to go ahead and just build on that because I want a little bit more intensity to it. But before I do that, I am going to go ahead and go in and blend that out. Going in with that blending brush that I did have earlier. I don't know if I mentioned this, but this is a Sonia Kashuk number 109 brush. Go ahead and just put a little bit more color of that love letter color because I want it to be a little bit more intense. And since I do have hooded eyes, I'm going just a little bit over where that crease is. I'm also going to go ahead and intensify the inner corner as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and just get that blending brush and just basically all the harsh edges, just blending them out. Now I am finding that this color here is a little bit hard to blend out here on the edge, so I'm going to go in just with that brush that I did have earlier that I used Real Gar and Warm Taupe with. Now I'm going to go ahead and just bring that back and forth. Usually I find that with the lighter shades, it's just a little bit easier with that color that you did have to go ahead and just try to blend that out. So that usually helps me. But I am not adding any additional shadow on here. I'm just using whatever was left on that brush to go ahead and try to just blend that out. I'm going to be focusing this as well in the outer and inner corner of the eyes. Going a little bit over that crease that we do have because, you know, us hooded eye girls, we gotta go up higher. I'm going to go ahead and just build it a little bit more up because, again, with the same thing with the Anastasia palette, I feel like I need to build up that intensity. I'm going to go in with the other brush, the one wild brush, the same one that we use with the Dupe for the Real Gar and the Warm Taupe. I'm going to go ahead and just go in there and just try to blend that out because I feel it's the same thing is happening with this side that happened with this side. I'm gonna go ahead and just intensify it on the inner corners of the eyes because I feel like it's kind of getting lost in there. And the same thing with the Wet n Wild one. I'm gonna do the same thing and just try to intensify the inner corner of the eye. But I feel like I have to build up a little bit more with the Wet n Wild side than with that Renaissance palette. Okay, going back in with that other brush just to soften up those edges. So I'm going to go ahead and go in now with a concealer. Go ahead and just cut out the just the middle for this part right here. So now with two packing brushes, I'm going to be using the Tarte for the Wet n Wild and the Anastasia for the ABH palette. I'm going to go in with the shade Primavera, which is here, and in this shade it would be this one here. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in the center of my eye. Is I'm going to go ahead and just grab those two brushes here, and I'm just going to go ahead and try to blend everything in nicely together, making sure everything comes just nicely in together. Wrong one. I'm going to grab this pencil brush as well. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that that goes in nicely in. And do the same thing on what I did to this side now with the Wet n Wild stuff that I did have on my brushes. In regards to fallout, I do have a little bit more fallout on this side than on this side. I feel like I have like minimal amount of fallout on this. Okay, so this is the fallout with the Modern Renaissance palette. That's the fallout with the Wet n Wild palette, and then this is the fallout with the Anastasia palette. So I just put foundation on. I'm going to go ahead and just finish off the rest of the eyes, the bottom, and then a little light coat of mascara. I'm going to let you guys know exactly what time it is, and then we're going to do the wear test. We're going to try to do for 8 hours. I'm going to start off with the Primavera shade. Underneath, I'm going to go under here, and then we're going to go ahead and just finish off the rest. Basically the same kind of order. We're going to be using Warm Taupe, Real Guard, and then the Love Letter, just to go ahead excuse me, and match up the eye look here. So let's go ahead and start with that. Same brushes I'm going to be using. I'm not going to be using different brushes. So I'm going to be using Primavera underneath the brow bone as well. And then I'm going to go in with the Wet n Wild one. Okay, so here is the finished eye look with a little bit of mascara, no falsies, because I definitely want you guys to see. So tell me from this angle here, would you be able to tell which side is Wet n Wild and which side is the Modern Renaissance palette? I don't think you really can. I think they both look the same, if you tell me. But the time right now is 10:57. We'll call in check-in time at 11, and then we're going to go ahead and do an 8-hour wear test, because usually that's how long wear at works, right? 8 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and check in later on with you guys at the end of the night, just to see how long it actually, you know, was there for the wear time of this and all that. So I will see you guys until then. I've had the eyeshadows on my eyes for approximately 8 hours, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom you in just so you guys can see definitely the difference. I definitely do think that the the Rosé in the Air is definitely a dupe for the Modern Renaissance palette in regards to the longevity and also the colors as well. I think the Wet n Wild did a little bit better than the Modern Renaissance, and the only reason why is because, well, in my opinion, I'm thinking, is because this eye here is a little bit more hooded than this eye. So definitely when the hood here comes down, I think it definitely causes that crease here. But I'm going to go ahead and zoom you in so you can definitely see what I'm talking about. Okay, so as you can see here, I'm going to go ahead and just look down. You can definitely see the transition, say the brown shade here, definitely in this crease of my eye here, and you can't see that on this side here. This is the Wet n Wild side and this is the ABH side. So I don't know if you can tell that, but definitely no creasing whatsoever, but just a little bit slight transfer from this eye here, again because I think I do have hooded eyes. That's the only reason why. But yeah, I definitely recommend this one as a dupe if you don't have $42 to get this palette here. This one here is $5.99, and then CVS usually has, you know, like you could get like coupons and the ECBs, you know, the things that they do there. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And yeah, that's about it. I will see you guys next time. Bye.
아직도 믿기지가 않아 이 모든 게 다 꿈인 것 같아